Good afternoon, councillors. We will open the meeting at 5:27 p.m. and thank you for your attendance. Do we have any apologies?
I'll put in an apology for Councillor Ladbroke.
Okay. Do we have a seconder?
I'm happy to second.
Righto. Any opposition? We'll go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
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 It's not really an apology if he's got a conflict of interest, though, is it?
He's an apology because he didn't come to the meeting.
Yeah.
Okay. Righto.
So,
Councillor Edwards, yes.
righto. And all those against? Okay, that's 8-0. Righto. Okay, item 6.1, Bassett Park Jockey Room Variation, upgrade to the grandstand ladies' toilets. We have a mover. Well, I'd like to move that Council A, receive and note the report requesting additional funds. B, endorse the additional amount of $58,000 to Bassett Park projects, incorporating a variation addition of $54,000 being a transfer from unrestricted cash to the Jockey Room project, work order 223380, and $4,000 to work order 14099 from Bassett Park Maintenance for the grandstand toilets refurbishment. Do we have a seconder?
Have a question, if I could.
Please go ahead.
I just,
Sorry, I have some questions too. And Mayor, before you proceed, I apologise that the phone dropped out. If you were looking for me to vote on that item before, the phone dropped out, so I've just come back.
Righto. No, we haven't voted. I've just moved the motion on the
The apology.
Oh, you didn't. Right,
I wasn't on the line when the apology was voted on. I'm sorry, the phone dropped out.
Righto. So we'll go back to that. We've done 4. Is anyone against? And Councillor O'Neill, you're for the apology, are you?
Yes, I am for.
Righto.
Yes, I am.
So we had it as 8-0. So yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. So Councillor Taylor.
one of my questions is the transfer from unrestricted cash. Is there any opportunity to maybe have a look at projects so that we might pull a project that isn't as urgent as this project that's already funded? Or can I ask why it's out of the unrestricted cash?
Look, through the chair, a certain amount of your capital projects we've pushed forward for the Q3 review into next year. All of those were approved at the beginning of the budgetary process, and this project isn't included in the original budget. So we didn't have any other projects that we could shuffle around currently at this stage. So because we've moved as much as we can, or you will be moving on the 13th, as much as you can into the 2022-2023 year, it is simpler to preserve all of those projects going forward and just take this money from unrestricted cash to top up this project, because all of the budget amendments have already been done. So it's all pretty last minute to sort of start shuffling the projects in and out. Okay. It's a good question, is if those projects were still sitting in the budget, it would make sense to say replace this project with that project. It's just that we had already formalised the agenda for the Q3 variation review, and had pushed all of those projects into 22-23.
Okay, so my next question is, going on the emails the other day, I thought this was time critical, as in it's supposed to have done at 10 o'clock this morning. So why have we pushed it out to 5:15 today when you wanted an answer from all of us before 10 o'clock today?
Look, through the chair, I think the 10 o'clock time label actually came from Councillor O'Neill originally proposing that we hold a special meal for 10.
Didn't you want us to sign off on it
Today.
Today?
Today.
No time today?
No specific time today. It's by the end of today. Yep.
Okay.
Oh, Mr. Mayor, that's not correct.
No.
While I proposed a 10 a.m. Special meeting over the weekend, there was reference to having all responses from councillors to be in by 10 a.m. today,
That's what I thought.
and that's why I proposed the 10 a.m. special meeting.
Through the chair, when I originally sent the email out on Friday, it was to provide a timeline that we get the responses back. That actually was preceding the request for the 10 o'clock meeting. It was really housekeeping so that we could get back to the builder. The builder needed to know today, but I also made sure that if we got back to him later today, it wasn't a problem, and it isn't.
Okay, thank you. That's all I got. Thank you.
Righto. Councillor O'Neill, do you
I
have
have a question. Oh, sorry.
Councillor Hancock?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'm just wondering, and once again, I can't see which officers are in the room, but who is the project officer for this project?
Through the chair, it's Richard Irwin.
Right, and he's not here to answer any questions about the project?
Through the chair, the officer, when we talk about council reports, is actually the Chief Executive Officer. The staff talk through me as you talk through the Mayor as councillors.
Alrighty, so would you please be able to provide me with the update on why wasn't this initially in the project to start with, that overall project? Why wasn't it actually put forward in that budget then? Was that because we couldn't afford it, or was it because of another reason, or?
Through the chair, just the outline that the project officer gave me on Friday was that it was a twofold reason. There was an intermittent water leak in relation to upstairs around the tiling in the viewing area. And as a result, the project manager was concerned that if the improvements were done to the 2 additional rooms, that there was the potential for water to leak onto the new work and actually sort of wreck the new work. What the officer did tell me was that they had subsequently been back to council recently in March, and council had approved some additional monies to retile the viewing area and to make it waterproof. So that will actually resolve the issue. In my conversations today on site with the project manager, what he also informed me was that the original project was kept deliberately small because they were concerned that a larger project may trigger fire compliance in relation to the building code. The reality is that was advice that he received at the time from Council Certifier. Council Certifier has since retired, and Council has a new certifier, of which whom have recently advised council is that we will need to actually bring the building up to the fire code, and what that will mean is additional handrails in the stairwells going up to the viewing area. The project manager is subsequently in conversation with the Turf Club, and they're looking at utilising money that's been unspent to allocate to that project, and the Turf Club will look for some additional funding, and the Turf Club don't meet till tomorrow night, so it's not part of the project that we can consider at this point. However, the Turf Club, in my conversations with them, or certainly with Peter Flynn as the joint president, was that they would be looking for funding to support that project and make sure that it got done and was funded by them. Hope that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you, it does. Just wondering, can you recall where we took that money from then when we did the first project variation for the tiles? Where did we take that money from? Because I don't think it was reserves.
Through the chair, all I know is, and I'm just looking at a paste from the email that was sent to me from the project office.
Edwina, I can't hear you.
Apologies. What I know is that it was and it must have been another variation in relation to the purchase order. It was dated 26th of February 22, it was approved on the 4th of March 22, and it was purchase order 187878.
But we're not sure where we took that money for that project variation. Like if there's another bucket.
Through the chair, I think that has made it into your budget review process. So it's been incorporated into the overall financial figures.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Councillor O'Neill?
Sorry, I was just finding the unmute. Yeah, my questions are similar to Councillor Taylor's, and I haven't quite grasped the explanation and comments from the CEO in relation to the Q3 budget review and whether there is any capital projects that we should be looking at as a council to fund these works via. Is there any project that could be identified that is unlikely to be completed by the end of this financial year? Or if there's not, if we were to compare the pressing need for this project against one of the capital projects that hasn't started but may be completed by the end of this financial year, to make an informed decision as to whether we should be dipping into cash reserves or delaying the works of another project. So I didn't quite understand how the agenda already being finalised, and full disclosure, I haven't read the agenda for next week yet, to understand why that's an impediment to consider other capital projects in light of what's before us today.
Look, through the chair, the work had been done in order in pushing the unexpended, the projects that hadn't commenced into the 22-23 year. So all of that work had been done and pushed forward, and accordingly that report has been provided as part of the agenda for the 13th of April. So it was just simpler, to be frank, to take the money from unrestricted cash reserves, from unrestricted cash to fund the project. Ultimately, the project needs to be funded, so it's really taking it out of your reserve bucket. Ultimately, on the 13th of April, you could do a lot of pushing and throwing and review that at that point. But clearly, our issue today is about whether we're going to proceed with this project, and I wanted to give you a recommendation which you could proceed on and provide a source of funds.
Okay, any other questions? Right, no other questions?
It looks like Councillor Guthrie has her hand up on here.
Mr. Mayor, I did put my hand up. I was just following the last question and was going to make the point that I'm not in favour of pushing any projects that we've approved in this particular financial year out to the next year based on this having greater priority. I think we're so close now to the new budget process for the new financial year. I personally don't have a problem with taking this money from the unrestricted cash, knowing that we've only got now, this is April, we've only got 2 months really until the next budget's getting done. And this one here I think is pretty urgent.
Right.
I suppose, Mr. Mayor, if I can, given that I asked the question, I wasn't by any means suggesting that's what we would ultimately do. I was simply asking whether it would be prudent to do that so that we weren't dipping into cash reserves.
Okay, well, I've got a question. If we tweak next week's council meeting and we find something, can we put it back into cash reserves after that?
Yep, through the chair, absolutely. Ultimately, it's your recommendation, and when it comes to council on the 13th, that is to endorse the Q3 review. We can circulate those projects that have been pushed forward to 22-23 to councillors, and you can certainly reimburse your cash reserves with allocated money should you wish to do so.
Okay, no other questions, councillors? So we have a mover. Do we have a seconder for this motion?
I'll second it.
Councillor
Councillor
Burkett.
Mr. Mayor, could I move a procedural motion, please?
Yeah, please go ahead.
I move the motion be put.
Righto. Well, in that case, then we have to put the motion.
I don't know what that
What
means.
what does that mean? Because I was just going to ask if that was including GST or not, but if I'm not allowed to do that, well, I don't know what that means.
Well, I think the question is different to debate. So you wanted to know if it was including GST, Councillor Hancock?
Yeah, normally just we make sure when we've got the figures in the resolution whether we know whether it includes GST or not includes GST, so we're clear. That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Through the chair, the variation is for the amount of predominantly for the amount of $45,725.87 does include GST, and the $4,000 comes from maintenance.
So that figure is not what's been that the mayor's moved.
This is
That's a different
58.
figure.
Yeah, that's right. So it's the 58,000 I would imagine would have GST included, because otherwise you couldn't pay them otherwise.
That's right. Through the chair, yes, it is it's inclusive of GST. So the amount of 58,000 includes $46,000 inclusive of GST plus $4,000 inclusive of GST in relation to Bassett Park maintenance, if that makes sense. So the 58,000 does include GST.
Okay, no other questions. We've got a motion that we've got a procedural motion that the motion be put, and
Don't know what that means, I'm sorry.
so we basically, please go ahead, CEO.
Look, through the chair, what happens when any councillor puts up a procedural motion, it doesn't need to be seconded. It should be voted on immediately. There should be no further debate in the chamber. Make some exceptions. Clearly what it means is it is a procedural motion that the motion be put towards the chamber to be voted on. So all discussion ceases and the mayor asks for the vote.
We don't need to vote on that, do we?
So we don't get to speak.
Procedural.
Through the chair, it stops. If you need to vote on the procedural motion, if you're all in favour of the procedural motion that the matter be put, that then means that you go directly to the vote. There's no further discussion. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yep.
So we're voting on that, not
Yeah.
on the motion.
Righto, so just so everyone's clear, we're going to vote on whether the motion should be put straight away. So all those in favour?
Yes.
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 Councillor Edwards, yes.
Okay, and then all those against?
Yes.
I'm against.
Against.
Okay. So that is,
Mr. Mayor, you haven't called. I didn't hear you call.
no, I put my hand up, but that's a yes.
I can't see you. Sorry, I'm only on
Yeah.
the phone.
Righto. So I'm in favour of putting the motion. So that would be 5-3. Does everyone agree with that?
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
Righto. Okay, and I'll call for a division. Now that means that we put the motion. All those in favour?
Yes.
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 Councillor Edwards, yes.
And I'm yes.
Yes, I'm in favour.
Yes, I'm in favour. You want me to say?
Yeah, we've got 2. What about Councillor Hancock?
I already said yes, thanks.
Righto, so that means 8-0.
I was going to say, Mr Mayor, I'm having trouble hearing, but you've just said 8-0, thank you.
Yeah,
I
8-0
can't see
is,
anything.
if everyone just to double check in case someone wants to vote a different way, that's 8-0. Okay, any further business, councillors? I'll close the special meeting at 5:47 p.m. Thank you for your attendance.